Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 18 of Can Do Entertainment Presents May the Force Be With Who. Now, I told you that I was going to get into my favorite new Doctor episode, so we're going to start with the Ninth Doctor, Christopher Eccleston. Now, it's only going to be a top 5 of this list for Christopher Eccleston because, as we all know, the Ninth Doctor only made one series, which was series number 1. Now, here are the kind of rules or guidelines about how I'm doing these top 10 lists, or top 5 lists in the case of the Ninth Doctor. Multiple story or two-parters or three-parters are going to count as one entry because they're following the same definitive storyline or arc. It's basically one story just broke up into 2 parts, or in some cases 3 parts, so it's going to count as one. And any Dr. Light stories, like maybe Blink, Love and Monsters, they're not going to be on my list because they're Dr. Light episodes and don't really feature the Doctor. So I know when I get to my David Tennant list and Blink's not on it, it's going to be not popular, but whatever, it's just my favorite list. I'm not saying these are the greatest episodes in Who history, they're just some of my favorites. So without further ado, we're going to get to my favorite, or at least my top 5 favorite, Christopher Eccleston Doctor Who episodes, The Ninth Doctor, which are all found on Series 1. Sound effects, cool! Alright, coming in at number 5 is going to be the episode Boomtown. Now, I know a lot of y'all are probably thinking, Boomtown, that episode really is kind of and it was kind of the cheap episode that was made in Series 1. Yes, it was, and they rehashed the Slovene as the villains in that episode. But the reason why I really like this story is basically the acting. Especially the scene in the restaurant, the dinner in bondage over steak and chips between Christopher Eccleston's Ninth Doctor and Annette Badland's Margaret Blaine / Blondfell Foch Pelpassimer Slovene, or however the hell her name went. The whole kind of, it was almost flirty byplay between the two of them, where at first in the conversation she's trying to kill him with the pinky poison dart and then with the bad breath or whatever, and he thwarts her at every turn. And then the conversation takes a more serious tone where she's basically pleading for her life for him not to send her back to Raxacorical Fallipatorius, where she will be put to death if he returns her there. And the Doctor's not having any of it. And it's basically, she's trying to make him see the aftermath of what happens after all his adventures. Because, the Doctor always, flies away in the TARDIS and never has to deal with any of the cleanup or the after effects. And she points that out several times in the episode, but, it's the acting. And that's going to be a recurring theme in my favorite list of all these episodes, is the acting. It may not be the villains, it may not be the story, it may not be the effects, but it's going to come down to the acting or the story. And the acting in this episode, especially that scene in the restaurant between Annette Badland and Christopher Eccleston, is phenomenal. Another reason why I like this episode is that towards the end of this episode, Mickey, Noel Clarke, shows back up. And it begins sort of the upward trajectory of Mickey's character development, because in this episode is the episode where Mickey finally gives Rose some backtalk and some attitude for how she's been treating him so far in Series 1, when she just, as he calls it, swans off with the Doctor. And it was nice to see Mickey start to grow a backbone. And, as the series develops into Series 2 and later on with Mickey Smith, he goes from being kind of a doormat to having a bit more character, and I think that's great. So those are 2 of the main reasons why I like Boomtown. So Boomtown, number 5. Alright. Hit the right damn button here. Doesn't light up. Alright, coming in at number 4, also available on Series 1, is End of the World. Now, End of the World was the second episode in Series 1, and it was basically our first venture into getting to see aliens again, or at least since Doctor Who came back. We're going, okay, there's aliens. It's not an Earthbound story. It's basically Rose's introduction to time and space. And just the opening part where all the different aliens are filing in, the Moxa Balhoun and the repeated memes and the trees, just the scene where they're all coming up to Rose and the doctor, especially like when the Matzabalhun hocks a loogie in Rose's face, and I give you the gifts of bodily saliva. And then Eccleston, responds to everyone, I give you air for my lungs. Where else but Doctor Who are you going to find such stuff? I mean, that's what makes this show awesome. And, the villain of the piece, the bitchy trampoline, Cassandra, the moisturize me. That's just great stuff from RTD. It really was. And, the bit where her and Rose are bitching back and forth about who really is the last human. And, the bitchy trampoline. Sorry, I need to buy Val. Yes, that's still alive. And it was just really just great to, introduce us, the fans, back into the whole there are other worlds, there are other aliens concept. And to do it in the second episode of a new series, or at least in 2005 it was a new series, that was a bold move by RTD. And, who can resist Eccleston bebopping to a jukebox / she calls it an iPhone or an iPod, doing the whole tainted love thing. Now, yeah, granted, him stepping through the big swirling fan at the climax of the episode with his eyes closed is but I enjoyed the story, and we finally get the companion Rose, goes, how come I can understand them all? They all speak in English. And he, Eccleston explains the TARDIS translation matrix, so that was a good caveat for us Who fans. So those are among the reasons why I think End of the World is my fourth favorite Christopher Eccleston episode. Moving on. I'm wasting so much time on this damn sound effect. Okay, sorry, I'm getting a text. Damn, it's a long one. Anyway, alright, moving on. At number 3 is going to be my first 2 episodes in one spot, and that's going to be the finale of Series 1, Bad Wolf and Parting of the Ways. Now, there are a lot of great things in this episode. The Doctor, Rose, and Captain Jack are all transmatted into game shows. The Doctor is transplanted into Big Brother, Rose is transposed. Rose is transported into The Weakest Link, and Jack is transported into, I believe it's called What Not to Wear. But they're deadly versions of these TV shows. And it's kind of like, who has set this up? And it's a tie back to the episode The Long Game, because they're on Satellite 5, and now Satellite 5, instead of news, is posting out video games that every contestant on Earth has to play or they die. And it's a tense episode, especially the tension really rises up when the android from Rose's version of The Weakest Link supposedly disintegrates her. Just raw intensity on Eccleston's face when he thinks Rose has been killed. It's some strong acting. Christopher Eccleston shows why he was a great actor being cast in the role of, the Ninth Doctor. But what really sells this is the cliffhanger, where the Doctor and the Daleks are facing off. And yes, it's the return of the Daleks in this episode. But when Eccleston is facing off with the Daleks, and he's like, no, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to rescue her. I'm going to wipe out the whole stinking Dalek. And then, you have no plan, no this and no that. And he's like, yeah, doesn't that scare you to death? That scene right there is one of Eccleston's best as the Doctor. And basically he gives a cliffhanger to the Daleks and spoilers of what's going to happen in the next episode, The Parting of the Ways. Which isn't as good as Bad Wolf, but it does have its moments. Basically, the part with the holograph where he turns and looks at Rose and says, have a good life. That gives me chills every time I see it. The actual regeneration from Eccleston into David Tennant was a very good, bittersweet regeneration. So I do like Parting of the Ways, just not as much as Bad Wolf, but it's the same narrative story. So they both come in at number 3 on my list of top 5 Christopher Eccleston episodes, or The Ninth Doctor. And now to number 2. I knew the sound effect thing was going to take so long I wouldn't have done it. At number 2, off of Series 1, is the episode Dalek, written by Rob Sherman. I know some of you out there are going, what? Dalek's not number 1? Not on my list, it's not. But it is a hell of an episode. Basically, it starts out when Rose and the Doctor materialize in the underground vault of billionaire Henry Van Staten. And the Doctor is, he collects alien artifacts, and it's just, you get the tone for what kind of episode it's going to be when the Doctor sees the old severed head of a Cyberman, and he's like, oh, I'm getting old, and they're finding all these other alien artifacts that are in this sort of museum underground in Utah. And the one artifact that Van Staden has that he's not been able to make talk happens to be a surviving Dalek from the Time War. The scene in the holding cell where the Doctor discovers the Dalek and the Dalek discovers the Doctor is fantastic. Eccleston goes from being terrified to calm to righteous to just boiling over with just pure rage and anger and just the spittle coming off of his face. Powerful, probably his best moment as the Doctor in all of Series 1. So that's just awesome. And plus, it's probably the best Dalek story since Who Came Back, because it just showed that one Dalek can be devastating. Whereas, we've had hundreds and thousands of Daleks in previous episodes, and they just don't feel all that menacing. But all it took was one in Rob Sherman's great episode, Dalek. I hope maybe, if they're going to keep incorporating the Daleks in future episodes, that we can get back to something like that, where they're actually fearful and evil and terrifying instead of just background noise for Davros or whoever else is in the episode. But Dalek comes in at number 2 on my list. And now, my number 1 pick. Sip on Mountain Dew here. Sorry for being unprofessional. Alright, coming in at number 1 is also, I have to buy out, also a multiple story. It is the 2-parter, The Empty Child and The Doctor Dances, written by Stephen Moffat. Yes, once again, something else to prove to all you Moffat haters that Moffat can write great Who, and he does with this episode. The whole creepy little kid going around going, are you my mummy? Are you my mummy? Which has actually gotten 2 callbacks in later series. It got a call back in 2008's The Poison Sky, and it got a call back as recently as 2014 in Peter Capaldi's Mummy on the Orient Express. That is how you institute a catchphrase, people, that it still lasts the test of time. But nobody can deny that that little kid is a creepy little bastard walking around going, are you my mummy? Are you my mummy? And there's just the tone set against, Blitz-torn London during World War II. And the whole, Nancy feeding the whole urchins of London and trying to figure out what the problem is. Plus, we get the introduction of one of the greatest characters in Who history, Captain Jack Harkness. But a few of the I'm running out of time here, so a few of the things that stand out in this episode are, number 1, the meeting between the Ninth Doctor and Dr. Constantine in the Albion Hospital, where Dr. Constantine is explaining basically how all the patients there have the same injuries as Jamie does, with the scar on the hand and the gas mask fused to the face. And then that whole interaction with the doctor's trying to figure out what's going on, and then Dr. Constantine slowly goes, "Are you my mummy?" and the whole gas mask comes out of his face. That was great. And then going into part 2, we're off of the cliffhanger from part 1, where the doctor sends Jamie to his room. He's like, "Go to your room." And then later they're in his room and they're listening to the tape of Dr. Constantine talking to the empty child Jamie, and they're listening and they're listening and listening while Jack and Rose are talking, and all of a sudden there's this noise, this click, 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 and Rose goes, "What's that noise?" And he's like, "That's the tape. It ran out about 30 seconds ago." And then the boy's still talking, going, "Are you my mummy? Are you my mummy?" And the doctor figures out this is his room, and I sent him to his room. I mean, it's just great stuff, and it shows that Moffat is a genius. Now, he doesn't prove that all the time, especially lately in his run, but that is the kind of writing that, got Stephen Moffat the gig in the first place. And that's why on my list of top 5 Christopher Eccleston episodes, The Empty Child / The Doctor Dances comes in at number 1. So, alright, to review, number 5, Boomtown. Number 4, End of the World. Number 3, Bad Wolf / The Parting of the Ways. Number 2, Dalek. And number 1, The Empty Child and The Doctor Dances. I hope you enjoyed this list. If you want to agree, disagree, discuss, please leave a comment down below. Click like, subscribe. And hopefully I'll be back sometime early next week with my list of top 10. I'll be able to jack it up because of David Tennant doing 4 seasons. List of David Tennant episodes. So, alright, until then, keep on keeping on. And as always, may the Force be with who?